to Book Club.
Book club.
Turning pages, sparking conversations. I'm your host, Gino. I'm here with my beautiful co-host, Jalen.
Hey, y'all.
And today we'll be going over chapters 15 through 18 of our book, Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. So today's guiding question is, how does loss reshape the way we define family, freedom, and faith in a collapsing world? And we'll keep that in the back of our heads and we'll revisit that. Little recap. The walls of Robledo, both literal and metaphorical, start to fall. More like they fell. They fell, it was burned down. We witnessed that fire and death creeping closer. It consumed the neighborhood and they had to leave. The fragility of security is no longer just a fear, it's a reality. So all that security, all that world she known is gone. So she's coping with that and is on the road again. Well, I guess on the road for the first time. And she's learning what that road life is like.
She walking already.
Yeah. Earthseed begins to bloom more clearly in Lauren's thoughts. So she is writing her Earthseed chapters and she starts to share them in these chapters with other people.
With Zara and Harry.
Zara and Harry.
What's his name? No, something with a T and an N. The pregnant couple.
And the pregnant couple. Is it Travis?
Something like that, yeah. We keep going.
We'll find it. But so summary: Robledo is burned. Everything Lauren knew is gone, and she now is on the road with Harry and Zara, and they end up meeting some more allies. A pregnant couple. There was
you going so far ahead.
Yeah.
It burned down. Everything Lauren knows is gone. So Lauren, Harry, and Zara, they walking up north. But they have to get more supplies because they have a gun, they need food, they need supplies.
Between the three of them, all they have is pretty much what?
2 guns.
What Lauren grabbed in her bug out bag, and they was able to scavenge a few things, but Harry and Zara don't really have too much on them. But Lauren was prepared for this, so.
Right. So Lauren, she had 4 pockets full. Literally, she had it sewn into her pants. I think it said like clippers, whatever. Didn't it say she had 10 bands, or am I just making that up?
She had a lot of money. Well, it was a lot of money, but it's not worth a lot because inflation is really high during this time, which is another key point.
So she goes into the store, falls out. Well, really, does she really? Everything's just so expensive. She has to buy what they need.
She uses most of her money, if not all of it, right?
Yeah.
On supplies and food. Bullets. She gets ammunition, which is probably the most helpful.
Yeah.
And
they continue their trek.
Yeah, they continue their trek. They stop at a water station. That we'll get into that. So she's forced to flee into the dangerous unknown, disguised and cautious. So the whole time that they're on the outside, Lauren figures it's better for her to disguise herself as a man. She says she has the build of a man.
Flat chest.
And she doesn't quite have the face of a man, which lady with the baby
we're not
points
there
out.
Yet.
But
she don't look like a man. She a girl.
But to the normal eye, most people are seeing her as a man, and that just helps her avoid danger, just looking more like a threat than you are.
But also on the other hand, Zara looks good. She cute, so she draws a lot of attention to the group, which Lauren doesn't really care too much for because that's just extra eyes, extra. It's just extra, and it's a lot going on. So.
Especially when grapes are so prevalent in this, you're just sort of making yourself a target for male predators, and that's one thing they're avoiding is predators. It's not necessarily strong groups of people. It's more like people scavenging on the weak, and there's a lot of that going on. So appearing as 2 men and 1 woman as a group, they appear more intimidating.
Right. So they find a little site, and Lauren's like, okay, we have to take turns, 3 hours each, watching. Gotta watch. And I think Lauren's peeping that Harry and Zara got a little something going on, but she's like, that doesn't matter right now. We need to stay alive. everyone take turns
Hmm.
and do the do. But then what happens? Harry gets jumped or
Yeah,
attacked while
Harry
he's
gets
on
attacked while he's
watch,
on watch. Yeah, he
and
ends up killing one of them, and
Lauren punches the other one in the back of the head.
yeah, Lauren I think picks a rock and smashes the back of the head or
Something like
something
that.
like that. Smashes the back of the head of the second person, and his head is caved in, but he's not dead. He's still breathing. So Lawrence slits his throat to finish the job to make sure he dies. One to make sure he doesn't suffer in just pain, and two to make sure she doesn't suffer in pain because of her hyper empathy.
And that incident right there is what leads Lauren to explaining to Zara and Harry what her disease is, her
Yeah,
hyper empathy. So she tells people for the first time, hey, this is what's going on. Here's my lore. Here's the backstory. You take it or leave it.
mm-hmm.
Lauren, she's all for it. Lauren gives her lore.
Oh,
I mean, yeah,
yeah,
Zara, she's all for it. I mean, she gives her backstory, the type of community she grew up in. She's like, girl, hyper empathy ain't nothing.
right.
Everybody where I'm from, they
On drugs,
drug
that mama on
babies,
drugs.
crack babies, drug babies, can't read, can't write, using the bathroom on themselves at 9, 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And Harry over here, he's just like,
He's in disbelief. He can't believe that
she just did
Lauren
that.
just slit his throat. He was like, "Yeah, I would never do that." And Harry's not willing to compromise his values for his survival and you know, being in the outside world. But I mean, yeah, he has to. He has to understand for his own survival. But he's a little resistant. Like, no, we shouldn't kill people. No, you know. But he got attacked and he had to kill somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's sort of sitting in how real it is. But then he's starting to question Lauren. Like, okay, well, is Lauren somebody to be trusted?
Who are
Because
you?
right. And so that's he's skeptical, especially because so many people can't read or write. He's skeptical that she's reading or writing because one, that's just sort of a rare thing to do. It's like, okay, what are you writing about? Like,
Right.
and that's when she starts sharing the Earthseed verses. She tries to keep it with the light ones so they don't get scared or spooked out. But Harry ends up liking it. The he calls them poems.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Harry's feeling it. They gotta go walk again. They gotta get some water.
Mm-hmm.
So they walk to the water well. They see a family,
Mm-hmm.
a black family. Well, black man, was it Latina,
Mm-hmm.
Mexican woman, Latina woman with a baby, a mixed baby.
Mm-hmm.
So Lauren sees them, gives them some water. Were they about to get robbed?
So some petty thieves came and tried to take their waters,
Mm-hmm.
and Lauren tripped one of the robbers, and they ended up getting the water bottles back, and the scavengers, the predators, ended up just sort of fleeing away.
Mm-hmm. So the family gets some water. They're super appreciative of that. But Lauren, the trio, Lauren, Harry, and Zara, they keep that long trek up north.
Mm-hmm.
But Lauren's been peeping that this family has been low key following them the whole time. Not too close, but pretty close enough where you can peep. Hey, this family has been following us for days
Mm-hmm.
or hours and hours because it's only y'all know how the chapters are.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they find the ocean.
Yep, they go to the beach. They see the ocean for the first time, which I think it's cool. I don't know, seeing the ocean for the first time is just an amazing experience. I was blessed to be able to see the ocean a lot, but I know there's some people who've never seen the ocean, and I mean, I just could imagine what that feeling is like to see the ocean for the first time. So they experienced that. The couple with the baby, they're camping out near.
Oh, and before they see the ocean,
Mhm.
child, Harry and Zara then hooked up,
Mhm.
being grown. And Lauren heard the whole thing.
Mhm.
They kind of woke her up. So that's a little,
And she was able to experience some of the pleasure from it too because of her hyper empathy.
yeah.
And she was really upset because she was upset, but she didn't want to like put them on blast and embarrass them. But she was upset because if they're having sex, then who's on watch?
Yeah.
And so she brought that up to him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Harry's a little embarrassed about that. Um,
But yeah, they at the beach. They take baths, they bathe themselves, wash their clothes, hair, all that stuff. And
mhm.
Lauren decides to go and talk to the family and say, hey, I've been people y'all following us. Y'all are more than welcome to join because we are, what's the word she used? allies.
Allies, yep.
She said we're allies, so y'all are more than welcome.
Natural allies.
Yes. Family was very hesitant
because of the racial composition. Harry being white, Zara being black, Lauren being the black man perceived by others, and the other black man and Hispanic couple. So mixed races aren't commonly seen. Mixed families aren't commonly seen, and they're sort of antagonized by the rest of the people on the highway and just out and about in the world. So that's why she kept mentioning them as natural allies.
So Lauren goes over there, you know, woo woo. Family's like a little apprehensive. All right, thank you for the invite. We're gonna chill out until one night the family get attacked by dogs.
Yes, dogs storm the beach. So the beach has been pretty peaceful besides wild dogs start roaming the beach and the dogs start trying to drag the baby.
Yeah, the dog going after the family, the dog going after the baby. They trying to kick and scream.
And I think Lauren shoots the dog.
Pull out that blicky and shoot the dog. And then the scavengers come and pick up the dog and probably eat the dog.
And shortly after that, the family comes up to them because before that they offered to be allies with the family. The family was like no, but then after they helped kill the dog and save their baby, they were, you know, they came around. It's like, all right, you know what, we could use each other's, we could use your help, and but they're still skeptical, and which is natural because that's what Lauren says. That's what's keeping people alive in this environment.
Still skeptical, but then you just start to get everybody's lore. The husband basically tells his backstory, how he met his wife. They got the baby, had to go away from the house, and now Lauren is sharing her.
What is their lore? They were workers. They both worked at the same place. I think he was a cook and she was
like a slave or
something. Like a housemaid. I think they were both sort of slaves.
Yeah, they were both slaves.
And the owner, the slave owner, wants
Travis.
Travis's wife. The slave owner wanted to have Travis's wife to do whatever with her, and Travis wasn't going for it. So instead of like causing problems and having to fight and kill the slave owner, they just sort of escaped their plantation or their house or wherever, their commune, wherever they were living.
So,
and I think that's just a crazy thing how like, yeah, people with money during times of like extreme, you know, chaos, people with money really think they can do whatever they want. But yeah,
Travis gives the backstory, and then Lauren starts sharing her Earthseed with Travis too. So they start going not back and forth.
Right. No, they do go back and forth. Travis is asking her questions about it, critiquing it. But Lauren is like, I think I have my first Earthseed believer in Travis. Because he seemed even interested enough to talk about it and bring up counterpoints and stuff.
And then what else?
I think they're just heading north together.
Yeah, they're just a team about to keep walking.
Yeah, it's a good summary. Right. Themes to explore: survival through adaptation. Yeah, they have to adapt. They have to take watch. And Lauren, I think,
even be in disguise at times.
And be in disguise. And I think Lauren sees sort of the weaknesses of her group in the trio and understands that, okay, if we add the family to it, that'll strengthen us. Even though they have a baby and a woman and a baby, overall, like based on their structure, it'll be easier for them to keep watch. So now two people can keep watch, and it'll just, you know, make it sort of easier. And I think that's very keen of her to see, like, okay, Harry and Zara, they hooking up, they not keeping watch. I probably will need extra people to hold people accountable.
And it's also very smart for the family to want to join Lauren and the crew because they just got attacked by wild dogs. And if it wasn't for Lauren, they would be dead, or the baby would be dead. So, because they didn't have to go with Lauren in the group, they could have just been like, "Oh, it was nice that she killed the dog," but
their water would have been stolen.
Yeah, right. So the family is very smart. With Travis, I don't know who's making the decisions, but very smart to go over there to the trio.
Travis was reluctant about it, and what's the wife's name?
Natividad.
Natividad. She was on board as soon as Lauren saved the baby from the dog. She was like, "All right, you saved my baby. Now I'm cool, whatever."
Mhm.
And I think that just shows like the just sort of the importance of motherhood and like that dynamic. Like, okay, if you save my baby, then like that's almost like the ultimate form of trust for like a mother, like trusting somebody with their child.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Chosen family and community building.
Hmm. And I think this just goes into them making allies and now that they're asking about Earthseed, you know, sort of collectively they're like, yeah, it'd be nice to have a community where we don't have to deal with certain things. So they're sort of already on board with Earthseed in a lot of ways. Some parts they accept, some parts they're like, nah, I'm not really interested about humans taking the stars thing, but having a commune is something that would be really nice. And so yeah, she sort of started her Earthseed community, and that's the beginning of it, and it's growing.
Yeah. And also times are so hard out there. As much as you probably want to try to do stuff by yourself, when you look around, you need a group of people
Mhm.
to survive. So that's probably where they are. I mean, they have a baby, so
Mhm.
it's probably really tough.
Mhm. Sure.
Hmm. Faith in a new God, Earthseed, Miss Lauren.
Hmm. People seem to accept Earthseed, and there's not really much alternatives because so many people can't read and write. So, um, they sort of just roll with it. There's not too much besides Travis, asking questions about it, but and eventually like really liking it.
Yeah,
Nobody really gives that much pushback to Lauren's Earthseed ideas.
they think it's really cool though.
Hmm.
It is super cool. And then we got Lauren's hyper empathy in a violent world.
Hmm.
She didn't killed. She didn't shot.
Hmm.
She just. I mean, she's feeling
I
it.
think she dropped to the ground when she shot the dog, so she
Yeah.
felt the dog. When she hit the guy in the back of the
She
head,
passed out.
she passed out from that.
So she's feeling all the
So
feels.
these her protect herself, defending herself is coming at a cost to
Mhm.
her pain.
Yeah.
So mhm.
Yeah.
All right, some discussion questions. What does Earthseed offer that traditional religion doesn't? Um, I think it's just sort of that adaptability and the fact that it, I guess, technically doesn't exist yet, um, makes it not dogmatic and allows it to be something like that can grow into something because it's still a seed, it's still an idea that's growing. So there's not really like dogma or traditions into that religion as of yet because it's at the
Very
very
fresh.
beginning. Yeah, it's a fresh religion. Hmm.
I agree.
Hmm.
Can a philosophy rooted in change offer real stability?
I think it's one of those paradoxical thing. Like the only thing we know is nothing, or the only thing that doesn't change is everything. Like it's just a paradoxical. If everything's changed, then how can you find stability in the fact that nothing is stable?
Right.
That is the stability, is the fact that you can know nothing is stable.
Yeah.
And
it can be uncomfortable at times.
Right.
Constant change.
Mm-hmm. And it's like paradoxical.
Mm-hmm. Facts.
Mm-hmm.
What are the pros and cons of forming trust in strangers during a crisis?
Um, you get killed, you get robbed, you get set up, or you get sold out too.
Pros, you got night
Yep,
watch.
you got
You can
night
sleep.
watch. You have more people to talk to, so I'm sure that helps keeps your sanity,
Mm-hmm.
especially in times like that. And
Share stories.
share stories, yeah, share supplies, resources,
Teach each other.
more manpower, labor, yeah, teach
Mhm.
each other stuff. That's Lauren's been teaching Zara how to read and write.
Yeah.
Hmm. Mhm.
How do you define family when your blood ties are gone?
Yeah, that's a good one. And I wouldn't necessarily say that Lauren has accepted anybody on her journey as family yet. So it's interesting to see how if she does make her allies her family, or
Right.
what her future family looks like going forward, because we know all of her biological family is dead.
It seems like to me, Lauren's just psychoanalyzing everyone and writing her Earthseed. It doesn't. She's still processing her family's death.
For sure.
We don't even know if all of her family's dead, but
no, we do.
Even her mom and her brothers.
Yeah.
Oh well, her family did, so she's just grieving.
Let's go back to our guiding question. How does loss reshape the way we define family, freedom, and faith in a collapsing world? So you guys want?
Well, I think it forces you to surrender. I'm Christian, so once you surrender, you gotta just give it all up to God and just have faith and trust in Him. And you just can't control. You realize that nothing's in your control. You can't change anything. Everything's out of your control.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that as well, especially with the word Muslim meaning to submit. Like that submission to God and putting your faith in God is really like, you know, all that you can do, and everything else is lost. Your family's dead, and all, all of that stuff. Like, yeah. And you see Lauren go into that with her Earthseed. Yeah. Okay. In a world on fire, what would your Earthseed verse say? Oh, you did that.
Yeah, I think we did that.
Well, let's just give a quick one.
It was like
slightly
write
different.
Your own Earthseed.
Yeah, it was. Okay, in a world on fire, let's keep it. Fire is change.
That's yours?
Yeah. Fire is change. It is only a transformation of matter. Yeah, something like that.
I'm trying to think of something super deep.
Because fire is literally just a change. Like it's such a fleeting process. It's something going from something, but with this, beautiful flaming something in the middle. And I also think it's interesting how the chemical reaction for fire, the byproduct of fire is water. Fire creates water. I just think that's so ironic. But you use fire to put out, use water to put out fire, but fire literally creates water. And carbon dioxide, as you guys know that.
Yes. Okay.
Combustion formula.
Mine is burning heart, grief. Earth is on fire.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I am Lauren.
Oh, Lamina. All right. Well, y'all, this is our pacing guide. We definitely got, a little sidetracked, you know what I'm saying? Just put some weeks in between, but, life be happening. But we hope that y'all continue to stay tuned with us. Next week, we'll be doing chapters 19 through 22. And yeah, hopefully we'll finish up on June 24th. And this book has been amazing so far. Yeah, I've been enjoying it. What about you?
So good.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I got past chapter 5 because the first time I tried to read it, I stopped at chapter 5.
Yeah. So. All right. Well, turning pages, sparking conversations. Thank you. And book club wins.
Book club wins.
See ya.
And book club wins.
Stick it this. No, stop.